Well, here we are again, Ratna and myself, Claudia, Ratna Mojaria and Claudia van Zuiden, both on our second talk, our second episode from Shakti Talks. So we hope you enjoyed our first session when we went into the topic of Shakti and leadership. And this week we are here to explore the topic a little bit further with regards to what Shakti actually means, what we feel it means, and why we've decided to have these conversations. So, hi Ratna.
Hi, Claudia. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm just super delighted to have this other dialogue, conversation, and to continue where we started. And as you and I well know, when we start to talk about topics as such, then our hearts open and our creativity starts to flow, and we get very enthusiastic. So,
Yes.
yeah, how did you find our first session? How was that for you?
Oh, I thought it was really inspiring in terms of when you did, like you just said, when we get together and we have conversations,
Hmm.
we actually expand and help each other really talk from the heart
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well. Talk from the
definitely.
heart and with honesty and humility and dissipating the fear that we sometimes hold about to talk about some of the topics that we talked about in our
Yeah,
first talk.
yeah.
But I think it's exciting because I hope we're going to create a platform for people to explore these things and share their thoughts with us on this
Yes,
as well.
yes. How wonderful. Yeah, so you are the founder of Dharma Awakenings,
That's right.
and perhaps you want to say a little bit more about what that entails.
Absolutely. So, yes, I'm the founder of Dharma Awakenings, and I recently put the whole concept together in terms of really about transformation from the inside out.
Yeah.
And having worked in the corporate world for many, many years, done a lot of um, change management, culture change. But one key thing I always noticed was the change usually happens when I was able to spark a light in other people. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that's been fenced in a little bit too much. And I think we need to create safe spaces for people to explore and find who they truly are inside because we have so much untapped energy and magic floating around, and that can't be good for the planet.
Okay, so yeah, wonderful. Well, I am the founder of Solution Ways and the co-founder of Conscious World Agents, and I think we go hand in hand on many many topics that we like to provide, as in a holistic way, helping people to thrive, to live there and unleash their full potential, whether that is in a personal life or in their professional life or in teams or organizations. And I think what we both have very strongly in common is that we use this feminine approach. And that I think that's also the reason why we came up with Shakti Talks, that we feel there is this um, change happening. There's many culture change in organizations happening, and we see that there is a beginning, and some organizations already have embodied it quite well. And is it sustainable? But and make it sustainable. But we feel there is still a need to take it further, this approach further. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I think for me, I think it's good to explain to everybody why we called it
yeah,
Shakti Talks as well and why it resonates. And we shouldn't assume that everybody even knows
yeah.
what Shakti means. And I know you've traveled around the world quite a lot,
Hmm.
and had teachers explain that to you. I've grown up with it as well, and I think it's actually good to talk about why we chose Shakti Talks and how it's relevant to so much of transformation as
Yeah.
well. So, Claudia, would you like to share what your take is and what your understanding is of Shaktis.
Yeah, thank you, Ratna. And for me, the Shakti really means the feminine principle of being. And what does that mean? Well, whether we are male or female or non-gender, you know, I would think that we have this tendency of trying to understand ourselves. All of us, we have to. If no, not all of us. Let me put it differently. Let's say that we want to find out who we really are. If we want to delve a little bit deeper than just surviving, as perhaps animals do. I don't think animals think of who am I. The journey for me and traveling around the world was more about that, like who am I, and how can I live a meaningful life? Well, in our culture in the West, we don't have many schools or teachers that can help us to find out who we truly are, coming from a deep philosophical stance. We have a very much Christian background in the West. And what we've seen there is it's been very masculine oriented, the churches and so forth. And then we had in the Middle Ages, we had a lot of folklore here in the West. We had a lot of women who were healers. We had a lot of women who knew about how to live with the land, how to live with medicine and all that. And something happened. These women were actually taken out. Some of these women were called witches, and there was like a big witch hunt. So we lost a lot of the way of how the women lived with the land, and a lot of the church took over, you know. That's just what history tells us. But I did feel a need to explore more into what were the plants, what were the herbs, how can I live a life healthily, holistically, and also thrive and live a successful life. So and I felt that we missed that in our culture. So I went into other cultures and said, how do you do that? Because I can't find these women anymore. I can go into churches and I can ask things. And yes, I can find some answers there, but they don't satisfy my search for the meaning of life fully. And what I then came to understand, I already practiced yoga since the age of 15. I was introduced to that and meditation through a friend of my mom. And I ended up in India and learned some more about yoga and so forth. And then they were really good in explaining how consciousness works, what it is, what is consciousness. And I also studied Buddhism, so there was a nice overlap in that about form and consciousness. Well, if we want to create things, there was something called Shakti. There is an energy that creates things, this life-bringing thing that makes things help to come into existence. And as a woman, I could really relate to that because I'm a mother, so I'm a life bringer. So something grows in me and I give birth to something. Well, that's one way of how I perceive Shakti to be, that out of nothing, out of the womb, which is this vast space, arises this energy and something comes into being, gets into form. It's that energy. Well, this also works with ideas. This also works with projects. This also works with lots of things. So to me, it's like that is Shakti. You know, when we out of nothing, out of consciousness, out of the ultimate, the cosmic consciousness, comes something, and that life force almost. It's like if that comes together, those two, then we get something magical happening, and that could be something that is quite applicable in many situations, also in projects, in organizations. We need to find some quiet time when this energy, this Shakti can arise. Like we were saying earlier, Einstein would go on walks, so his mind would be really clear and empty almost. And out of there came this idea or this new law of physics that came to his consciousness. But it came out of something, and that energy we need, I feel, more in our daily lives, rather than just going with what we have known for a long time, which is a more directive, a more dominant kind of energy that we've seen, rather than this mystical, this creative energy. I think that's been lacking a bit. So yeah, that helped me to, the lack of that helped me to find out more what was missing. And now I feel that's more in balance. So I like to share this more with the world, and how this could benefit, for example, organizations, how this can help us on a personal level. And yeah, you and I were both very close on this topic, and we were quite we could find each other with this, because we knew to be in balance within ourselves, we need to also have those two, the Shiva and the Shakti consciousness, and the creative flow, to be healthy, to thrive, to be, yeah, in how can I say it, in ultimate health, mind, body, and spirit. And if we can all, if we can start to share this with others, then, and we can bring this to the workplace, for example, how can we then not see the well-being of people improve? And this is what I feel has been sort of been held down a little, because if we don't, if we're not in that healthy state of beingness, it's easy to control us a little bit more.
So true.
So I think there is a huge shift happening with that. People are becoming more aware of that, and also leaders and so forth. They see really like, oh, if I actually let go of that control, my team or my organization is much more inventive, much more loyal. They're more empathic. They're more, yeah, the success rates are higher. We see greater retention. Yeah, so let's bring these traits of Shakti or feminine principles more to the surface. So that's how I see Shakti.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you see that, Rana?
No, thank you, Claudia. And I just want to say, it's a journey that you have to go on as well to find that as well, which I think you articulated so nicely. From my side, I'd just like to share, I've grown up as a Hindu, and Shakti is a word that's used in so many different formats. Even how we name when we have a daughter born into the house, we generally go to look for those powerful goddesses that we have and name them after that, because it gives them strength. And when you explain, so there's that angle to it. Another angle to
Nice.
it, how when we go to the temples, and this is irrespective of whether you're male or female, when you're singing the chants or when you're doing the normal prayers, Shakti is a word that's used all the time by men and by women.
Yeah.
And a lot of our prayers say Shakti do. So it means give us Shakti. And in that sense, it means give us power and strength. And the reason we ask for that power and strength is so that we can get the courage and strength when something is not so good in our lives, so that we can overcome any obstacles and try to live a bit more authentic. And that also means, we face people in our lives, and we don't always match with them for whatever reason, because I think I say it very often, we're all as different on the inside as we are on the outside. And it's so easy to have a negative opinion about someone, but sometimes you need Shakti and strength to be able to say, okay, help me find a way of how I can better myself to deal with this person, this situation. So it's used in a lot of language
Yeah,
terms,
nice. Yeah.
the word Shakti.
Yeah.
So I've been brought up with it.
Uh,
And I was actually born on the first night of a 9-day goddess festival that we have called
Yeah.
Navratri. And for me
Nice.
personally, I felt very honored that I was born on that night.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you a lot of strength to make you understand that you must be something bigger than you already are.
Mm.
And then life happens. And
Yes.
that
Yes. Yeah.
dissipates over time, experiences
Yeah.
happen. And then I've sort of come full circle, to be honest, Claudia, to
Mm.
go, that's been a core part of my upbringing.
Yeah.
Really, what's the theology behind it? What's the philosophical side about it? I've been brought up with Shiva and Shakti,
Yeah.
but what is that almost science behind it as well
Mm. Mm.
about the balance of divine and masculine energy? Because I also worked in an environment that was um, very male dominated from a corporate point of
Yeah.
view as
Yeah.
well. And I always tried to have my own value to keep my feminine side in that process. And the feminine side wasn't what you see on the outside as me being a female.
No.
It was more about trying to do the right thing at the right time and living by my values as
Yeah.
well. And another thing we say in another form of Shakti is also you mentioned Shiva. So Shiva on the outside is seen as a male figure
Yeah.
from what we see with our eyes.
Yeah.
But Shiva, Shakti, Krishna, Radha, Ram, Sita, they always come together. And I'm
Yeah.
not sure if people understand the feminine, the male always comes with that feminine as the divine power, because you use the words, the ability to create the world and how we create the world as women,
Yeah.
giving birth to children,
Yeah.
but being able to create that world and also display it in the world itself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason we resonated with let's call it Shakti Talks, is because it gives so much power to people to tap inside of themselves to understand the power and strength. And I think for not just their, very much for their own healing.
Yeah.
The Shakti power is there to deal with obstacles and traumas that we have, and the healing power it
Mm-hmm.
has. And that's really transgender as
Mm-hmm.
well, because at the end of the day, each human being has to go inside of themselves
Yeah.
to find that. And I'm sure so many people watching this and listening to this will know
Yeah.
they've had to dig deep to get the Shakti, to get the power
Yeah.
inside of them to bring themselves up.
Yeah.
But also in the leadership, with leaders leading ourselves, helping our families. How many people had to think outside of the box during
Mm-hmm.
COVID?
Yeah.
How they've had to deal with their managerial and supervisor roles and leadership roles, because that dynamic changed a lot. And it's interesting, over the last 10 days since we last spoke, I've spoken to a lot of people who have actually said they had to change their leadership style to
Mm-hmm.
deal with the well-being of people.
Yeah.
And I think you said about, it actually helps take the sickness rates down and the productivity and the creativity that it
Yeah.
creates in the work. And I absolutely, it was such an honor to listen to somebody say that
Mm-hmm.
when they'd worked with a company for nearly
Yeah.
30 years.
Wow.
That was really powerful when I heard that.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
Yeah.
the Shakti is about I think in this space, what we'd like, and I think we do this constantly in our beings of how we've led people and how we want to empower people is it's not just another word, it's another word used in Hinduism, Buddhism, in other cultures. There's different words for it as well. I think you could probably talk about that a little bit more. But everywhere we go in this diverse world that we have, I see every community having a word that
Yeah.
equates to Shakti. And we can learn from all of those words. But I think
Mhm.
Shakti just resonates with, with us, Claudia, because of the
Yeah,
topics you talk about.
yeah, and it's yeah, I suppose that's true, and it's just also the strength I think that you also mentioned is so valuable because we said that I think the last time it takes courage also, it takes courage to show your strength, especially in situations where yeah, that could have been a little bit of a challenge, to because especially in leadership, perhaps positions, if you show your strength, how will you do that? Will you do that in a non-approachable way, a non-receptive way, or do you do that in a way that is indeed approachable, open to new ideas, looks at collaboration, for example, and yeah, in a world that we live in, which is basically fueled by drive and ambition,
Mm-hmm.
that could be quite uh, looked down upon to say, well, actually, we don't know, no, we don't benefit from this in our organization. The old phrase like "let's crush this," "let's do this,"
Yeah.
becomes now I see much more replaced by how can I serve? How can I serve here as a team leader or as a organization or in your
Yeah.
community? There's much more of that we see arising, and I think that's really hopeful. And if we see the effects of the way we have done
Mhm.
leadership, how we've ruled the world for a long time, and we see the amount of depression, we see the amount of burnout, we see the amount of suicide.
Mhm.
It's just shocking, and
Absolutely.
yeah, I believe that this is so needed now, and people say, how do I do it then? And this is maybe why we have also, well, I think this is why we have decided to have these conversations to say, well, this is how you can do it, and this is what we see already in organizations, what's making a difference.
I think, what one of the things you said was also, I think we should explore is there's a lot of myths around what feminine energy is in
Yeah,
men also. And I would like to also add, it's not just men, it's in women, because if you look at our patriarchal systems that have been built where, you explained before that people there was a lot of feminine energy over history, but it was
yeah.
um, yeah, it was quietened down. Let's put it politically correct.
Yeah, yeah,
Very and then
yeah,
judgments were made, and they've turned, I think, into myths of what feminine energy is. So an example is if you have feminine energy, and I
yeah,
think this goes for young girls and females as well, it makes you weak. Big girls don't cry and man up. There's all these,
yeah,
the language we use, Claudia, has shaped itself into people boxing that
yeah,
creativity way.
yeah.
You know, I'd just like to explore a little bit with you, what role have the patriarchal systems, whether they're in society or in workplaces, they have been there. Do you feel they've been part of the demise of the feminine energy? And do you see a turning point actually happening now from the people that you speak to, the companies that you work with?
Ah, gosh. Well, let's keep this brief.
Yeah.
But yes, I have seen a change. I
Mhm.
have seen that the old way, the old stigma around the feminine energies, that is changing. We see that it's being eliminated more, I think. And like I said earlier, the old way of leadership that was not open for new ideas, that was very dominant. I think that has been something that we've been seeing for centuries, a dominance. It was, and my, I don't want to go into feminism and all that, but I
No,
do think
absolutely
it has made some changes into the benefit, and I'm sure there's still work to do
not.
with equality of pay and all that, and certainly in a lot of parts in the world where this is
Yes.
not correct yet.
Yeah.
But there's also something that our women themselves have not, they've kept themselves low because of many reasons.
Yeah.
And we see that also in organizations when women, for example, go for job interviews,
Yeah.
they feel less confident.
Yeah.
So it has had an influence that we've been affected by patriarchal society as such, and I think that is changing. Also, the women's self-worth, but we also see it with male people in the business industry who feel maybe more vulnerable, more emotional, and they don't dare to express that because that was also, like you say, man up expressions that were used to affect how they would share how they really felt, and has a huge effect on mental health with the men as well. And I think that is something we need to look at as well, how that also has not just affected the position of women in organizations and in life as such, but also how it has affected the men, that the men have, of course, we've labeled it feminine qualities or feminine traits or feminine skills, but we all have those specific traits that are, I think, imperative in leadership. We need them. We need them there. We need to be extrovert. We need to have openness within ourselves. We need to have openness to new ideas, all these things. And if you are a male person who comes up with these ideas and you're also told, no, we don't do it that way, we do it like this, then that is also not good for your mental health. And the patriarchy, I think, is crumbling a little bit like that. And I see in organizations now, there is much more openness, mindfulness, agreeableness, conscientiousness happening because people realize that when they do that, when they apply these traits into the companies, that this is really helping, and it helps with the well-being for all of us. So that dominant way of leading, I don't think is so relevant anymore. And I do see a change, and I see it with the clients I coach from big organizations as well. They become more aware of the fact that they can't work to 2, 3 in the morning, and they have leaders still that they demand to have a reply in their email. If they send that at 1 o'clock at night, that before 8 a.m. they should have had a reply. And now people are saying, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I need to take good care of myself and, setting my boundaries here. And I will do it as soon as I'm in the office or whatever. So there is something crumbling in that way. And I believe, this is something we need to create. We need to create environments where we help people to thrive rather than survive, a safe environment. And when these ways of operating are sustainable. And otherwise, things are really crumbling. You can't find staff anymore now. It's easy. Everybody's struggling. People are leaving. They don't want it anymore. So yes, I do see a huge change of what people expect now from their working conditions, the way they are treated. and therefore the leaders you see changing into more nurturing, more empathic leaders, and I think that's long overdue.
Yeah.
And that patriarchal viewpoint, I think, is crumbling, but we still have a long way to go.
I think we went through an era, from a masculine point of view, you're the protector, you're the leader.
Yeah,
But to be able to do those, you needed to find that the feminine energy, because to be a strong protector and a strong leader, you need to be mentally strong.
mm-hmm.
And that mental strength comes by making time for yourself, to heal yourself, to take away your own traumas, because life happens to any human being.
Yeah,
it's not gender specific
no,
at
not at
all
all.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think the big topics, when we talk about, well-being, we talk about ESG, sustainability, how we want to grow our business sustainably, more socially responsible with a different type of governance
yeah,
means, with the people that we have at the tops right now, how do they understand? You look at those topics, it's all about people and planet,
yeah,
which means there needs to be a softer side to
yeah,
how we bring the right mix of people to make the vision happen, not from a profit point of view for a company, but to play our part in the world, from protecting the climate, protecting our people, and influencing the communities around us, and making sure that companies are attractive for the next generation to come and work. Because I think
yeah,
that's a really big challenge
yeah,
for many companies right now, because the younger generation are really looking at, does that does that fit the mold? There's a different criteria that they're looking for than when you and I probably started,
yeah,
Claudia, to be quite
yeah,
honest.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that the feeling effect, that kinesthetic way of being employed in a company or being part of something, I see is rising a
yeah.
lot more. And I think some companies, I saw good examples of this the last few days
Mm-hmm.
of that happening. But I think many companies are, when you have everyone complains about a lot of things and they don't know how to fix something, or they say, oh, but the old way of working is not, it's everyone complains about it. But when you start pushing people, and this is all about the change management, when we want to push them somewhere,
Yeah,
what you had before becomes like, oh, I really like what I have, because the effort it takes to change is hard work.
yeah,
But if we bring the right mix of people with that diversity, then I think the creativity can be exploded. And I think that's what we individually like to do with people. And I know there's
yeah,
many people around that you and I know that do
yeah,
that as well. But I think it's good. I think it was good to let people know why we call this Shakti Talks
yeah,
as well. And I
yeah,
think we're going to go into so many more topics going
yeah,
forward as well. But I
yeah,
think for me, if we, Shakti is about the power, the courage, the creativity to create the world that we want to see going forward, because we have that chance every single moment of our day.
yeah.
And I think if we can light that up in everybody else, and we've had to go on our own journeys to do that, then that's what I think I certainly want to explore with you, Claudia, on
That's so
our
cool.
talks with Shakti Talks.
That's so cool. Well, it's like what I really love about these conversations is that people also, maybe who are watching, because they've chosen to look at this, they might have already had something that is in themselves that guided them towards this with their own awakening, or you name it. But I really like it. For example, for myself, that you have that moment of choice in everything, like you say. What are we creating? Do you want to be the change maker in the organization? How can you integrate it? Well, it starts with yourself, and And like you said, we all had our own trauma and own journeys and experiences. But it's like, what do you engage with? What do you choose to focus on? So as we know, that has been the way the system has worked for so long. Uh, we can have a discussion if it worked or not, but that's what it was, and now we are here.
Yeah.
So and it's a bit like I find nowadays, like when I sort out my laundry, when I do out the darker stuff and the lighter stuff and the colored stuff and all these things. And it's a bit like with my mind as well now. Like, okay, I've got all these things. I've got the masculine traits and the feminine traits and all these other principles that I have and qualities. Which ones do I apply in this certain situation? And I feel with us, it's been like with the Shakti, we've really chosen here to say, okay, let's move a little bit forward with this Shakti, because that's where the change is heading towards. And I love it what Mahatma Gandhi said: "Be the change you want to see in the world." And of course, you hear that phrase a lot.
Yes.
But it's like you need to embody some of it already. And if I look at myself in situations, yes, I do need those masculine traits. I need that drive. I need that ambition. I need that protector, provider energy, in myself as well, when I want to do things, when I want things to get things off the ground and whatever. But I also need that nurturing aspect in myself and that empathic part of myself, that compassionate, the collaborative aspect of myself to make things happen.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do it all alone anymore. And I feel like if people are watching this, they are maybe on the same journey or somehow. They maybe can, feel some resonance with what we're saying here. And what I would love to do with you is like have more of these talks, like you said, about so many topics, but also to go into organizations and talk about this and let people experience this, and that we more that also maybe we discuss this together, like maybe do something together in this and just have a workshop around it. What does it actually mean, this Shakti or the feminine principle of leadership?
I love that, because I think it's only when we create that experiential learning that we will accelerate the pace
Yeah.
that needs to be, and everyone has a different starting point as well.
Yeah.
And it's about finding the Shakti and the masculine, the feminine energy. I love how you said that we as women on the outside need that masculine trait, but to be to be the highest version of ourselves,
Yeah.
we need to be aware that there's a need for it, and how do we balance that and share our stories. I think this is why we want to share, Claudia, by sharing the stories and having the open discussions. So I think it's great that we're doing this, and if people have come along our talks and they've seen that, then I'd love to hear what people think, what they'd like to explore, and reach out to us, because we're here to serve people as well, Claudia.
How may we
What our
serve?
mission has been.
So
No,
true.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yes, I think we should end it there, because we could talk about this a long time, but I think it was really, I think it was great to share with people, what does Shakti actually mean? Because there's a reason why we called it that as well. And I hope people have got a flavor of what
Nice.
that means. And I think I would invite anybody, if you want to experience that as well. There's plenty of things that Claudia and I do between ourselves in our founder companies, where we're more than happy to come along, share, and help your teams, help you to explore that further for being the change in the world that we want to see.
So nice. Well, Shakti, I called you there.
I'm very honored.
Radna, thank you so much again for a wonderful conversation from the heart. And and I look forward to our next one.
Me too. Have a lovely day.
Let's think about the creative process we need to go through to find the next topic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
that's where we find them. Okay, lots of love.
Lots of
Thank you
love
so much.
too. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.